Is making the holiday dinner a really stressful idea to you? I think it is for a lot of people, but this video gives you lots of ideas and recipes to make it a little less intense. Everything from the way the turkey is prepped to the way I prepped all the side dishes makes making a holiday dinner a little bit easier. Make it beforehand. I make all of my side dishes, prep them the day before, and then on the day of, all I have to do is put them in the oven. So the sweet potato casserole, mac and cheese, stuffing, potatoes, and the Jello salad, all made the day before I was gonna serve them. And these particular recipes are not affected by sitting in the fridge overnight. They're not cooked first. They are still cooked on the day of, so they're cooked fresh, they're hot and ready to be served, or cold and ready to be served depending on what it is. And the way the turkey is prepped in this video guarantees you a juicy, flavorful turkey. There's no dry turkey when you prep a turkey like this, as long as you don't overcook it. But everything in this video is designed to make creating a holiday feast less stress, hopefully no stress. If you plan and you're prepared, it's much less stressful. Watch this video, leave a comment below of what your favorite holiday dish is. I would love to know. Enjoy. We're starting with 3 bulbs of garlic. We're gonna remove the stems. I'm keeping most of the paper because you don't need to remove it for what we're doing. All the loose bits I did throw away, but just the roots get rid of. 2 onions, paper still on, remove the root. I'm putting this in 1/3 cup of olive oil in a hot pan, and we're letting those brown for a while. I'm adding this poultry herb blend, 2 tablespoons of peppercorn, and 20 cups of water. To the 20 cups of water, we're adding a pound of brown sugar and 1 cup of sea salt. We want that water pretty salty. I've also been juicing 2 oranges to add to it, and we're going to throw the rinds of the orange right in there, followed by 2 teaspoons of poultry seasoning. Go ahead and add the orange juice right at the end, right before it boils. Bring to a boil, turn it off, and let it cool to room temperature. I defrosted my turkey in the fridge for about 4 days. I'm removing the packaging and the ice and the innards and putting it in the biggest bucket I could find. Now I'm adding the cooled brine on top of the turkey and adding a little extra water just so that the turkey is pretty much covered. We put it in the refrigerator for 24 hours. Now we're removing it from the liquid and prepping it a few hours before we're gonna put it in the smoker. Now I'm using this bacon, not for the turkey. I don't need the bacon for the turkey, but I need the grease. So from the hot pan after baking the bacon, we're gonna put butter and herbs into it, followed by that bacon grease. And we're going to melt that butter down. I would love this Kinder's buttery chicken seasoning, so I added that as well. We mix it up so that it's melted, and then we're going to put it in a pan to cool overnight. And I added a little olive oil to loosen it up. Now my turkey's ready to go. We're patting that boy down, getting him dry. Removing the hot guard. Pull the skin loose so you can get the butter underneath. I'm also going to remove the button popper thing because it doesn't actually work. Now go ahead and massage that fat butter oil mixture under the skin of the turkey. And then pat it all over the turkey on the outside and on the inside of the cavity, which sounds disgusting, but it makes for a flavorful turkey. We preheated our smoker with apple wood chips and water to 250 degrees. I get my chips a little bit wet, it helps them smoke for longer. That tray that's in there is to catch the drippings from the turkey. We're putting the turkey in breast side up so that all that stuff we just rubbed on it can melt right in. After about 6 hours, it looks like this, and it's delicious, but it's not done cooking quite yet. We're transferring ours to our electric roaster, taking all of that drippings that was saved from the smoker and pouring it back over the turkey, and I'll use that to baste it throughout the next 2 hours while I finish cooking it. We want to make sure the internal temperature gets to 165 degrees in the breast and 165 degrees in the leg at the bone. Side note, the gravy that came from that smoked liquid was divine. We're starting with 2 loaves of Udi's gluten-free bread. We're going to cut that into 1-inch cubes, and then we're going to put it onto a baking sheet. Once you get all of those cut up and put on a baking sheet, we are going to cover them with Italian seasoning. And then we're going to toast them in the oven at 100 degrees for about 20 minutes. Once you have that bread toasting, we're going to finely dice a whole onion. We want the onion pieces pretty darn small. I think it's easier to dice an onion if you cut it in half first. Next, we're going to take a cleaned stalk of celery, a whole bunch of celery, cleaned, rinsed, and we're going to chop that as small as we did the onions. Keep some of the leaves in there, it's not going to hurt the recipe. We're going to spray our cooking pan. I'm using these aluminum pans. And then we're going to cook a ½ pound of ground sausage. Cook it till it's brown, chop it up into little bits, season it very lightly with salt and pepper. We're going to add our celery and onion and let it cook until it gets a little bit translucent when they're just starting to get soft. And we're going to add a pretty good pinch of salt, followed by a little bit of pepper. But most importantly, we're going to add poultry seasoning. We got 3 teaspoons of poultry seasoning. This is what gives it the flavor. We're going to add 1 teaspoon of onion powder and a little squeeze of garlic. We're going to mix that up, and then we're going to melt a stick of butter with a whole quart of chicken stock. We're going to put in 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 3 teaspoons of poultry seasoning, bring it to a boil and remove it from the heat. And we're going to add a tablespoon of better than bouillon. This will really boost the flavor. We're going to add all of that to the dry breadcrumbs. I used a big pan to mix it in and then transferred it to the smaller cooking pan. And then I'm going to cook that at 375 for about an hour. Take it out once it's getting kind of golden around the edges and the top is crispy. This recipe calls for 2 cups of smoked Gouda, 1 cup of sharp white cheddar, 1 cup of brie with the rind removed, 2 cups of milk, 1/4 cup of gluten-free flour, 1 stick of butter, a dash of salt, a cup of gluten-free breadcrumbs, 1 tablespoon of paprika, and 1 pound of gluten-free noodles. We're going to throw that in some salted water that's been left to boil. So we got 8 cups of water and 2 tablespoons of salt. Throw those noodles into the hot water. We're going to cook those bad boys for about 6 minutes. Once they've cooked for 6 minutes, we want them to be al dente. We're going to drain them. I forgot to film the butter and flour cooking, so we're going to skip right over that and add the 2 cups of milk. Whisk until the lumps get dissolved. We're going to add a little dash of salt. Stir again. Next, we're putting in some dry mustard. I think we did 1 whole teaspoon of dry mustard and a bit of pepper. Add your 4 cups of cheese. We're going to stir it until the cheese is melted and it comes combined. Oil up your pan really good so nothing sticks when it's time to take it out of the pan. Put your drained noodles in there and then pour that cheese mixture all over the top of it. After you get all the cheese in, we're going to stir it around in the pan a little bit just to make sure the cheese gets into all the nooks and crannies and mix it up. Now we're going to throw more cheese on top. It's mac and cheese. It's supposed to be cheesy. And then we're going to mix the breadcrumbs with a dash of salt and a little bit of paprika. And we're going to be real generous throwing those on there. We want it to get nice and crispy on the top. I am putting it in my preheated smoker. It's 250 degrees with some fresh apple chips in the smoking tray. And we're going to pop it in the middle of the smoker and cook it uncovered for 2 hours. Cannot emphasize how good this mac and cheese turned out. We're starting with 5 pounds of golden potatoes. I'm going to peel all of the potatoes, as much of the skin as I can get off, and pop out any of the eyes if they're really gross. And put them in a dish so that I can take them over to my sink and rinse off all the gross dirt. I have a pot of cold water waiting, which is where I'm going to put these slices once I get them done. A note about slicing potatoes like this: if you slice off one edge to make a flat surface so you can push it up against your cutting board, you're going to get much more even slices of potato. So like I said, throwing them all into some cold water with 2 tablespoons of kosher salt. We're going to follow that up with 4 cloves of garlic. Mince them pretty thinly, and we're going to go ahead and throw that directly into the pot of the water with the potatoes and cook everything together. Once you're done with that garlic, you're gonna finely dice a whole onion, and that is going straight into our pot with the potatoes as well. We're gonna pop this all on the stove and let it boil for about 10 minutes. I forgot to film myself doing the butter and flour thickening agent, but here we have 2 cups of cheese and 2 cups of milk, and we're mixing that in there, and the butter and the flour help thicken up your cheese. You're putting that over the pre-cooked potatoes, a little bit of salt, pepper, more cheese on top, a little bit of parsley to brighten it up. I also added bacon. Here is the footage of the bacon. Just kidding, there's no footage. But here is the closest photo we could get of the final product. Starting off strong with some off-brand whipped topping, 2 containers of that, 2 boxes of pistachio pudding, 2 cans of crushed pineapple, some maraschino cherries, some pistachios, and a bag of mini marshmallows. We start by dumping the cans of crushed pineapple with the juice into a deep pan. We're going to follow that up with the 2 containers of Cool Whip, top it off with the pudding, and then I'm going to use a hand mixer to combine it all together. It only takes 30 seconds maybe to get it all combined. After you get that done, we're going to go ahead and transfer that out of the pot and into our nice fancy bowl, which I am putting marshmallows in first and then putting the pudding over top. We're gonna mix that together, and then I'm gonna use my little hand mill to crush the nuts up to be a more appropriate size. And I'm using a strainer to kind of put that dust on top. Next, I drained and took the stems off of a handful of maraschino cherries, and then I just cut them in half and kind of place them around the dish. I'm not doing a ton of maraschino cherries, just cutting them up so that they're a little bit more of a manageable size. Put them in there, and then after we get them all cut up and put in, we'll mix it around a bit. I dressed the top of this up with a couple of leftover cherries and some of this mixed nut ice cream topping. We're starting with 3 cans of canned yams. We're gonna drain all the liquid out of those and then put them into a stand mixer. Then we're gonna just turn that guy on and let it smooth out a bit before we throw in 2 tablespoons of butter. We're gonna follow that up with 3 teaspoons of brown sugar. And 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Next is 2 teaspoons of cinnamon and 1 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. Mix that together for a while, get all the spices combined, and then we're using 1/4 cup of half and half. Mix it together till it gets creamy and smooth. We're gonna scrape the sides 1 time and then give it one last final quick mix. Once everything is combined, we're gonna grease a pan and put our filling inside the pan. Once the filling's in there, we're gonna cover that thing with marshmallows. This is a measure with your heart situation. I covered mine and left it in the fridge for a day before I cooked it, but you can cook it right away as well. I would take it out about an hour before you're gonna cook it and cook it at 375 for about 25 minutes. And here's our final product, toasty, yummy marshmallows. And here's the final feast. If you have any catering needs, hit me up on my Instagram at Catering by Jenny or on my Facebook page, or leave me a comment and I will get back to you. Eat well, be well.